Woohoo! Donkey Kong Country Returns was announced during E3 2010 and released in November of that same year, which is exactly 14 years after the release of the last Donkey Kong Country game, which was the third one on Super Nintendo. The game was released on November 21st of 2010, and the first SNES game was released on November 21st too, but in 1994. Coincidence? I think not, especially considering Donkey Kong Country 2 was also released on November 21st, but of 1995. What? According to an interview with Retro Studios, developer Brian Walker said that Shigeru Miyamoto was very supportive of the entire dev team, supporting their ideas and acting as a sort of mentor to the team. When the collaboration was almost done, Brian remembers Miyamoto telling him a sentence in English that stuck with him forever. What Miyamoto said was, "Please take care of DK, he is my friend." In the very first level of the game, you get out of DK's house and you control him afterwards. If you decide to head back into the house, you'll notice a TV showing static. Well, just punch the floor to fix that TV, and there we go. The logo for DKC Returns will appear and the music will change too. Now this is my jam. This new Donkey Kong Country game was the first one to not feature a single Kremling, not even my boy King K. Rool. The reason is not officially known, but rumors say that Retro Studios actually wanted to create a new type of enemies to keep the series fresh and new. While the game came out in 2010, Retro Studios actually wanted to work on a Donkey Kong game for quite a long time. In fact, in 2004, right after Retro was done making Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, they asked Nintendo to work on a new Donkey Kong game. This idea was not approved, as Nintendo believed that Retro Studios should only work on games the Japanese developer couldn't do themselves, and thus they asked them to do a third Metroid Prime game. In World 2-6, there is a boat in the background at one point featuring a giraffe, an elephant, and a zebra, which might be a reference to the movie Madagascar. If you check out the options menu, the background will feature a coral reef. The shape of this reef is oddly similar to the Rareware logo, the developers of the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy on Super Nintendo. In World 3-2, there is a big monkey statue that's wearing a tie which kinda looks like the American flag. This tie is like the one Billy Mitchell, a former Donkey Kong arcade game world champion, used to wear all the time. Hey, look at those stone statues in the background. They actually show the classic Donkey Kong holding a barrel above his head. This is a reference to the arcade game, of course. In World 7-1, you'll notice a familiar friend working in the background. Hey, it's Mr. Game & Watch! What's up, my boy? And later in this stage, there appears to be a skull of Croco Meyer, a boss from Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. Considering Retro Studios worked on the Metroid Prime trilogy before working on Donkey Kong Country Returns, a Metroid Easter egg makes a lot of sense. Also in that stage, we can see the whole first level from the original Donkey Kong arcade in the background. Man, this level is filled to the brim with references. Donkey Kong Country Returns is the first and only game in the series that doesn't feature a single water level. According to the producers, they felt that the old underwater levels felt too slow and it wasn't the kind of gameplay they were looking for. Guess they ended up finding a way to make it interesting, as the Wii U sequel features a couple underwater stages. During the levels, if you put your controller down for a couple seconds, Donkey Kong will get bored and will start playing the Nintendo DS Lite. After he's done with it, he's just gonna throw it away. Hey DK, stop littering! This funny animation might have been inspired by an accident that occurred at the San Francisco Zoo, where a kid dropped their Nintendo DS in the gorilla pen and the gorilla started playing with it. There's a retailer in the UK called Game, which had a very cool promotion for the launch of the game. Basically, the first 20 customers could actually trade in actual bananas to get a copy of Donkey Kong Country Returns. Now this is what I call a good deal. And in the US, if you were amongst the first people to pre-order your game from GameStop, you'd receive a soft pouch shaped like a banana, which was meant to store your Wii remote. Neat! To promote the game, Nintendo dumped 1.5 stories worth of bananas in a street in Sydney, Australia to recreate the famous Kong Banana Horde. Fans were encouraged to take as many bananas as they wanted to bring back home, and all leftovers were donated to Oz Harvest, a charity trying to stop food waste. What a funny idea! The Nintendo 3DS version has an exclusive item in Cranky's shop, the DK Barrel. If you scroll over to it, Cranky will say, "It's dangerous to go alone, buy this." This is a reference to the old man in the original Legend of Zelda game, the one that says, "It's dangerous to go alone, take this." David Wise, the original composer for the Donkey Kong Country trilogy on Super Nintendo, was approached to create the music for Donkey Kong Country Returns, but was sadly unavailable at the time, which is why the job ended up going to Kenji Yamamoto. And Yamamoto actually worked on composing music for the Metroid Prime trilogy, so the team at Retro Studios actually already liked his work, which helped out quite a lot. Believe it or not, Wario Land on Virtual Boy was actually an inspiration for Retro while making DKC Returns. Wario Land featured foreground and background platforming, and the team actually loved that idea and decided to implement it in their game. Wow! Who said the Virtual Boy was a failure? After defeating a boss, you get to slap the crap out of them real quick. This is actually a reference to the GameCube game Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, in which you did, well, exactly that. Not everyone was a fan of the motion controls used in DKC Returns, which is why the controls were more traditional in the 3DS remake. Retro Studios really wanted Donkey Kong Country Returns to feature a 2-players mode, but Shigeru Miyamoto said that the focus should be on a solid single-player campaign. Retro didn't give up on that idea, insisting even further, and eventually showed a demo that convinced Miyamoto they did the right thing. There were actually tons of things the team wanted to include in this game that they just didn't have time to, which is why they started working on the sequel, Tropical Freeze, right after the first game was released. Donkey Kong Country Returns sold 6.5 million copies, making it the 16th best-selling Wii game of all time. It's also the second best-selling Donkey Kong Country game, right after the original game for the SNES, which sold 9.3 million copies. In honor of this game's release, Nintendo actually decided to trademark the sentence, "It's on like Donkey Kong." This is an old Nintendo phrase that has been used in many popular music, TV shows, and films over the years. 10 years later, in 2020, this trademark actually expired because Nintendo wasn't even using it. Well, that was worthless. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more useless facts, tap the cards on screen right now. Alright, bye!